Hello all and welcome back to my channel. My name is Pandey and today we are going to talk about Endpoint Analytics. So in this module we are going to talk about Microsoft adoption score and how the score is calculated, how we are going to interpret the organizational adoption score, what is Endpoint Analytics and why we need Endpoint Analytics, what is the benefit of endpoint analytics, what is the prerequisite licensing requirement, and how the endpoint analytics data flow and what are the features of endpoint analytics, and then how we are going to enable the endpoint analytics for Intune enrolled devices. So before starting discussion on endpoint analytics, let's first talk about what is adoption score. This will help us to understand the endpoint analytics in better way and also help us to understand why endpoint analytics feature is under reporting section. So adoption score supports the journey to digital transformation with insight about how the organization use Microsoft 365 and the technology experience that supports it. So your organization score reflects people and technology experience measurements and can be compared to benchmark from organizations similar in size. It provides metrics which help us to see where we are on our digital transformation journey. It also provides insights about the data which help us to identify opportunities to improve productivity and satisfaction in our organization. It also provides recommendations as well as the recommended actions we can take to help our organization use Microsoft 365 product effectively. So Microsoft adoption score provides metrics, insights and recommendations in two areas. First one is people experience, which qualifies how the organization works using Microsoft 365 categories like content collaboration, mobility, communication, meetings, and teamworks. And the second one is the technology experience. So organization depends on reliable as well as the well-performing technologies as well as the efficient use of Microsoft 365. Endpoint analytics help us to understand how our organization can be impacted by performance and health issues with hardware and softwares. Microsoft 365 app help us to understand whether the device in our organization are running Microsoft 365 applications or recommended channel. Adoption score is only available in Microsoft 365 Admin Center portal and can only accessible by global administrator, exchange administrator, SharePoint administrator, Skype for business administrator, team administrator, global readers, report readers and user summary report readers. Now let's discuss about how the adoption score is calculated. So Microsoft adoption score is based on the combined score of your people and technology experience categories. Each category is weighted equally with a total of 100 points. The highest possible adoption score is 800. In each score category, Microsoft quantify the key indicators for how the organization is using Microsoft 365 in its journey towards digital transformation. Microsoft provides 28-day and 180 days view of the key activities. Product included in Microsoft adoption score data are from Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, Outlook, Yammer and Skype. Let's see how Microsoft is interpreting organization adoption score. The adoption score homepage shows your organization total scores and the score history and the primary insights for each category. Your organization score is shown as a percentage value and in points we can see points in the numerator and the maximum possible points in the denominator. Peer benchmarks allow us to compare our organization score with organization like us. The peer benchmark for the people experience category is calculated as the average of measures within a set of similar organization. The set of organization is composed of organizations in your region with a similar number of license user, types of license, industries, and tenure with Microsoft 365. Important point is that Microsoft uses internal data to determine the industry that an organization map to. Tenant under a parent organization get mapped to the same industry as the parent organization, and organization cannot view or modify the industrial mapping. The people experience and technology experience areas contain the primary insight for the categories in content collaboration, mobility, communications, meeting, teamworks, network, connectivity, endpoint analytics, and Microsoft 365 app health. We can use each categories to see deeper insights. Now let's discuss the main agenda of this module, which is endpoint analytics. So Microsoft Endpoint Analytics is the monitoring service used by Microsoft Endpoint Manager, which enables organization to obtain granular and detailed data on their Windows devices. Endpoint Analytics is a part of Microsoft Productivity Score, which gives us insights for measuring how organization is working and the quality of experience we're delivering to our users. Endpoint analytics can help us to identify the policies or hardware issues that may be slowing down the devices, as well as help us proactively make improvements before end user generates a help text tickets. Endpoint analytics aim is to improve user productivity and reduce IT support cost by providing insights into the user experience. The insights enable admin to optimize the end user experience with proactive support, and this provides visibility and organization level insights providing area. These insights enable admin to optimize the end user experience with proactive support, and this also provides visibility and organizational level insights area like device boot time and application reliability, which can help user by highlighting potential issues within the organization. Endpoint analytics can expose a long sign-in process or issues with application unexpectedly stopping. Now let's discuss why we need endpoint analytics. So endpoint analytics help in improving the end user experience by fixing common issues like long boot time or other disruptions. This will provides the insight data which is currently not visible and available with the IT team for taking action. This insight data is very helpful in taking proactive actions very quickly. This will save a lot of time. If we know the issue, we can proactively fix it with the help of endpoint analytics. This will also help in reducing the high cost invested in support team. Now let's talk about what is the benefits of endpoint analytics. So with respect to benefits of endpoint analytics, it improves the productivity, reduce the IT support cost, provides valuable insights of data for taking the appropriate actions proactively, and optimize the end user experience. Now let's see what is the endpoint analytics prerequisites. So with respect to endpoint analytics prerequisites is totally based on the device management type. We can enroll a device in endpoint analytics either using Intune or using configuration manager. So if we are enrolling device via Intune, then the requirements are device should be Intune enrolled or co-managed device running Windows 10 Pro, Windows 10 Pro Education or Windows 10 Pro Enterprise or Windows 10 Education. Device must be either Azure joined or hybrid Azure joined. Network connected to the Microsoft public cloud should be there, and we need a Intune service administrator role to enable the endpoint analytics. If we are enrolling a device with configuration manager, then the configuration manager version 2002 with KB 4560496 update rollup for version 2002 or later should be installed. SSM client version should be above 2002 with KB article 4560496 or later. Microsoft Endpoint Manager tenant attach should be enabled, and enable endpoint analytics for device upload to Microsoft Endpoint Manager should be enabled. So if we want to use the proactive remediation scripting feature of endpoint analytics, then there are some other prerequisites. These are the machines should be Azure rejoin or hybrid rejoin, and we should have at least one of the following condition in place. Either the machine should be managed via Intune, or if it is a co-managed, then Windows 10 version should be 1903 or later, or if the client version is older, then we need to make sure that the client app workload pointing to the Intune. Now let's see how the endpoint analytics data is flowing. So endpoint analytics is available in all Intune location in Azure. So we need an Intune service administrator role to start the endpoint analytics data. Okay, so whenever Intune service administrator is starting the endpoint analytics data for Intune managed device, this needs to configure the Intune data collection policies. So by default, this policy is assigned to all the devices. We can change the assignment at any time to a subset of device or with no device at all. If we want to enable the endpoint analytics via configuration manager managed devices, we have to enable the endpoint analytics data collection. Now let's see how the device sends functional data. For Intune and co-managed devices with assigned policy, device sends required functional data in real time directly to the Microsoft Endpoint Manager service in public cloud, where it is processed every 24 hours. For configuration manager device, data flows to the Microsoft Endpoint Manager services through the configuration manager tenant attached connector. Device do not send data directly to the Microsoft public cloud, but the configuration manager connector is cloud attached and required connection to an Intune tenant. Device sends data to the configuration manager server role every 24 hours, and the connector sends data to the gateway service every hour. So the Microsoft Endpoint Management Service process data for each devices and publish the result for individual devices and organization aggregates in the admin console using MS Graph APIs, and the maximum latency end-to-end is 96 hours. Now let's see whatever we discussed in the previous slides, how we can understand the same thing with the help of this diagram. So we know that we can enable endpoint analytics in two cases. If we have a configuration manager managed devices, that is the first case, and if we have a Intune managed device or co-managed device. So let's talk about first the co-managed devices. So we know that as an admin, we have to enable the endpoint analytics in admin center portal. Once we are enabling the endpoint analytics in admin center portal, then this device services is going to create a policy called data collection policy and target it to the devices where we want. Once the device is getting those policy, those devices are going to send the data back to the device services via Intune management extension, and once the data is in the device services, then using MS Graph API, those data is going to publish in the Intune portal. So that is the scenario when we have a Intune managed device or managed device. Now let's talk about if we have a configuration manager device. So we know that when we have a configuration manager device, the requirement is to enable a tenant attach. When we are going to enable a tenant attach, and we need to deploy endpoint analytics data collection policy to the device. Once this policy is deployed to the required devices, device is going to report the data back to the configuration manager via SCCM client, and with the help of SCCM client, because this SCCM server is a tenant attached, then with the help of cloud attached, the data flows to the Microsoft endpoint management services via SCCM connector, and this data is moving to the device services, and from the device services via MS Graph APIs the data is published in admin center portal, and we can see the same thing in the admin center portal. Now this diagram is showing that when we are enabling the endpoint analytics and collecting the data, we need to select what is the level of data. So we are going, if we are going to select the required data only, then these are the information by default the required data is going to collect, which includes hardware inventory information, application information, diagnostic performance, and users data tied to users and or devices, and the device data not tied to the device or user. So with respect to hardware inventory information, Endpoint Analytics is going to collect the model, make, device classes, and country. And with respect to application inventory, they're going to collect the name of application and the version of the operating system. With respect to diagnostic performance, users data tied to the user or device, they're going to collect logon ID, boot ID, current boot time in milliseconds, total boot time in milliseconds, then update time in milliseconds, GP desktop usable duration in milliseconds, top processor. For an example, they're going to collect the process name, CPU utilization, process full path also, and who is the publisher, and what is the Windows version, what is the product version, and the device data which is not tied or associated with any device or user, like what is the unique ID, what is the local ID, and what is the path, and then AD device ID and the organization ID. And based on these required information, Endpoint Analytics is going to evaluate the things, and accordingly, with the help of inbuilt mechanism, they are going to publish the required information in a meaningful way under Endpoint Manager Admin Center portal. Now let's see how we can enable Endpoint Analytics for Intune enrolled devices through Admin Center portal. So right now I am on my Microsoft Endpoint Manager Admin Center portal. To enable the Endpoint Analytics, we have to go to the reports, and then under reports we have an option called analytics. Under that we have endpoint analytics option. Once we are on this page, we can see that we don't have any option enable. Now we have to go to the here, and we need to enable the collect data, device data, and we can select whether we want to collect the device data for all the cloud managed devices or select group, or I have an option to choose this option later. By default it is selected to all. So what will happen if you are going to select this all and going to start it, then by default Intune is going to create a Intune data collection policy and target it to all devices. Let me show you first that. Under configuration profiles, I don't have any policy created. Now I am going to enable the endpoint analytics, and for that I am going to go there, and I am going to enable it for all the cloud managed devices, and then going to start it. Once this is done, all the options under reports are enabled, and we can check under setting that our Intune data collection policy is enabled. And if we go back again to the device configuration profile, we can see that Intune data collection policy is created, and that is targeted to the all devices. At any point of time, if you want, you can change it to some, or you can delete the you can delete the assignment also. Now I'm again going back to the Endpoint Analytics portal and see what all options we have. Okay, in settings we already saw that our Intune data policy setting is showing as connected. If you are enabling it for configuration manager devices, then this option is going to show as a connected. There might be a scenario where you have some devices totally managed via Intune and some devices managed either as CCM or in co-manage. Then in that case you will see both the option is showing connected, and by default it's showing that consent to share the data is enabled checked. Now under reports we have four types of reports. One is the startup reports. This startup reports improves the performance to optimize the time from power on to the productivity. And this proactive remediation, we already saw that to enable a proactive remediation we need a licensing, Windows 10 licensing, and that for that either we should have Windows 10 enterprise E3 or E5 license, or Windows 10 or 11 education A3 or A5 license, or if we have a virtual environment then Azure virtual desktop access E3 or E5 license. So I have a Windows 10 enterprise E3 or E5 license. I am going to confirm it, and now I can create a scripts. I can create a remediation scripts and deploy the remediation scripts. Now the third option available is the application reliability, and then work from anywhere. So these are the options. In the next module we'll see how we can leverage the proactive remediation for improving the user experience. I hope this is an informative video for you. Thank you very much for watching this video.